So it's either time to nut up or...
Nut up? Who you nutting up? Pause. Shh. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. The cluckness is about to happen. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Just a little bit further. Sup? Though, any hour-long reactions, let me know that in the comment section below. Because I have yet to try cheesy jalapeno. This might be a hit or miss. Dill pickle. It's new. I saw it on the shelf. I had to get it. And sweet and salty kettle corn. But I had this before, but I don't know if I had this as Orville Redenbacher though. Because Colonel Seasoning brand doesn't compare. Like the I don't know how to say, like the quality, the quality in the seasoning does not compare to Orville Redenbacher. So this kettle corn seasoning is gonna be a lot different than this one. This is like thick, it's rich. I don't know why I said rich. But it's just the quality in Orville Redenbacher is so much better than Colonel seasoning. And the only reason I got this is because I don't remember having the seasoning before. Maybe I did. I don't know. I've tasted so many seasonings over the years. But all right, let's go. Sup, dog.
I was at home for 3
I thought he was driving at first. That hot ass, whatever it is, in his cup.
days for a mini stay-at-home vacation from work. I live in a very rural area, about an hour from the city.
Damn.
Honestly, I hadn't really taken these days off for any particular reason. I guess I was just feeling like I needed a break.
Oh, yeah.
It was on my first day off as I stayed at home and watched TV, among doing some other small things around the house. Around dinner time, though, a knock came from the front door. I sat up from the couch and looked at the clock, seeing it was 7 p.m.
That's too late.
It was strange for anyone to be at my house in general.
So why'd you get up in the first place? Because you're about that cluck shit, you about that cluck life.
But given the time as well, it was even more so. I walked up to the door and cracked it open.
You might as well crack your booty cheeks open because the thing or person that's on the other side of the door got some condoms and is ready for your ass.
A man was on the doorstep, smiling at me. He looked like any other guy, no special features or anything. "What do you need?" I asked, looking around behind him and noticing no car or truck in my driveway. The man maintained a smile as he went through a whole scenario he was in just a few minutes ago. He said he was on the road that connected to my driveway when someone slammed into his car and drove off, leaving him stranded and having to come to me for help. The way he described it, and just from looking at him, things didn't seem to add up. My driveway was far from the road, and the chances he got into an accident right by the entrance was almost zero on such an empty road. I told him I'd call the police for him if he'd like, but the man declined.
Oh yeah? Well, tough. Because I already called him and they're 20 seconds away.
He said he wanted to borrow my phone to call his wife. It took me a few seconds to respond because being unsure about the situation made me nervous to say,
a few seconds to respond. A few seconds. A few milliseconds is too long to respond.
No to him. I said I would call the police and that was it. but the man's smile went away as he said don't worry about it and walked away from the porch.
Oh no.
I closed the door, then looked out the window as the man walked down the driveway and disappeared in the dark. After a moment, I called the police just to be safe. About 20 minutes later though, I got a call back from them saying there were no signs of any crashes on the road.
Yeah, that's because you and that thick ass mustache is in cahoots.
I stayed up late that night, looking out the windows and just being overall a little bit uneasy.
A little bit?
But once it got to around 12, I was too tired to stay up. I went upstairs to my bedroom and got ready, then got in bed and fell fast asleep. I remember waking up frantically, but not understanding why. Like maybe I'd heard something in my sleep, but didn't wake up fast enough to comprehend it. Looking over, it was about 3 a.m.
Oh, God.
I got up from my bed and walked over to the door so I could listen for any sounds in the rest of the house. It was mostly quiet, but I could hear a slight rustling sound from somewhere outside. I carefully walked down the stairs to check on it, thinking it was probably just a bush rustling against the house. But as I got to the downstairs hallway, I realized the sound was moving. It was going along the edge of the house and toward the front. I felt my heart start racing as I tried to reassure myself everything was okay. But then the rustling stopped, and only a moment later, there was a knock at the door. I stood still at the end of the hallway and stared at the front door, terrified of whoever was out there. After a few seconds, I moved away and up to a small window on the side of the house that had a view of the porch. Through the blinds, I could see two men, both in dark clothing, and both holding something in their hands. It looked like tools or weapons of some kind.
See, if you was to have that Adidas protection, they wouldn't even come 6 miles within your property. Get your security game up. You clucking up.
My eyes
big ass nostrils.
widened in fear as I backed away and quietly walked back up to my room. More knocking echoed through the house as I called the police and locked myself in. As I stayed on the phone, the knocks turned into banging thuds, and I immediately knew it was what I feared. They were trying to break the door down. Hit after hit, non-stop for over 5 minutes.
Damn!
They banged on the door.
That's a long time to be doing that for 5 minutes.
Shaking the whole house. Then the operator on the phone finally said an officer was pulling up to my house, and at that same time, all the banging stopped. When the cop pulled up though, he said he didn't see any men at my door. They must have run off just before he could see them. The door, however, was barely hanging on. The wood was bent and splintered, with only the bolt lock still in place. I was lucky that the police were able to show up quick enough, but I guess I was also smart to have not helped that one man. I'm assuming if I had, I would have only accelerated their plans to do whatever it was they were trying to do. Even today, though, I still worry about them coming back.
Ain't nothing to worry about if you got your security shits up. You don't. You don't. Your security's ass. You don't got no cameras, no nothing. You're trash. You're trash and your mother a hoe. Oh.
A year ago, in midwinter, I was staying at an Airbnb on the east coast of the U.S.
Right.
I had a family member that was sick, and I wanted to be nearby for a few weeks in case of any emergencies.
Damn.
While staying there, I figured I might have...
Damn, you stayed in the Airbnb a few weeks? Jesus. I wonder what's the longest someone ever stayed at an Airbnb.
I'll make a vacation of it, since I'd really be doing nothing else. So the Airbnb I got was a modern cabin with a small lake behind it.
Damn.
Most of the area around was a forest as well, so it was really nice and a very different landscape from where I lived. Anyway, about a week after I'd gotten there, I rented out some camping equipment and thought it'd be nice to go out by the lake and maybe spend a night on the beach. The Airbnb was only a short walk away, if there was any trouble, so it wasn't really much of an adventure. I just wanted to lay out by the stars and clear my head, I guess. I made a few walks out to bring all the equipment, then set up the tent.
Weak-ass tent.
It was actually really easy because it was made for beginners, so I had plenty of time to get everything else set up, as well as a rock circle for the campfire. Once that was all done, I kicked back and relaxed, sipping on a beer as I watched the sunset. The calm sound of the campfire, along with the forest, was something I'd missed, having lived in a big city for so many years. But maybe 20 or so minutes after the sun had set, I was caught off guard by a guy walking up to my campsite.
And that's the reason why your ass should be in the city. You don't got no protection. No, that's not an Adidas tent. You don't got no Adidas clothes on. You don't got no Adidas blood. Shit. Right? You right next to a lake or a big body of water. It's a lot going on.
I stood up as a natural reaction, but the man seemed to see my worriness as he stopped walking and put his hands up, apologizing for the scare.
I apologize, my ass. Where the cluck you come from? Where the cluck you apologize? Hold on now. Hold on now. I apologize for the. That's like. This is your bathroom, and that door leads to like the inside of your house, right? And you taking a shit, right? You taking a shit. Come out. Hold. I don't mean to apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I scared you. Hold on now. Just wait. Like what? You taking a shit? And you just open the door? Like, that's crazy. Hell no. What? Where did you come from? There's nothing that you could say to justify what you got going on.
He was about the same age as me, mid-30s, but was very tall and skinny. I looked past him at the forest he came from. There was no path that I could see. It was just a bunch of trees that backed up to the lake. Where did you come from?
I'm saying.
The man made a short grin as he said he was just staying in a place on the other side of the lake and saw my campfire, so he thought he'd come out and have a beer with me.
What?
I gave a nervous smile, as that wasn't exactly a normal thing to do.
I would have said, I'm good. Back up. You know what's in here? 350-degree hot-ass oil ready to go for your cluck ass. How you want it? Down the throat? Huh? The belly button? Huh? When you spread your cheeks? Oh my God. Can you imagine? Somebody force your cheeks open. Somebody force your cheeks open and they pour slow oil that's temp at 350 degrees and they just, oh shit, it's dripping. Pause.
Out in the middle of a forest, and on second thought, I was pretty sure there were no houses on the other side of the lake. I'm actually not looking for company right now. Sorry, I said politely, hoping this could be a quick, harmless interaction. The guy seemed almost puzzled by my response, as his grin went down to a straight face. He glanced at the Airbnb that was behind me and stayed quiet. Then after a few moments of silence, he said okay and walked back the way he came. I watched, trying to keep track of him to see where exactly he was walking to, but he faded out into the darkness of the woods without any flashlight. Feeling pretty unnerved, I decided to grab most of my stuff and haul it back to the Airbnb.
Yeah, nah, he just want to know what you got going on, the situation, if you was protected. Yeah, he just wanted to scope out the scenery. He just wanted to know what he was dealing with. He gonna come back.
Not wanting to risk being outside with that guy around. Trying to carry everything at once, though, was a bad move on my part, exhausting me after only getting halfway to the house. And just as soon as I stopped for a breather, I heard heavy footsteps coming from the woods. I turned, seeing the man.
Why did you come to a dead stop and look back? Like, why you not hauling ass? I'm supposed to be the only one out there. And you hear footsteps hauling ass. You hear somebody hauling ass. And your immediate reaction is, what?
And storming straight out of the tree line and right toward me with a look of insanity in his eyes.
See?
I dropped everything and tried to run, but immediately got knocked to the ground. From the speed he tackled me at.
Hey, the way the animation was, it's like the way he tackled him, he was like, shh, go to sleep.
I turned, seeing the man storming straight out of the tree line and right toward me with a look of insanity.
Look, watch.
I dropped everything and tried to run, but immediately knocked to.
Wait a minute. Shh. Go to sleep. The clockness is about to happen. Oh yeah. Just a little bit further. Yup. One more time. Just a little bit. I'm in there. Oh yeah. Oh look. Oh, you tired? I'm wide awake. Round 2, motherfucker.
From the speed he tackled me at, we both tumbled on the grass, and I somehow managed to get on my feet before he could get a hold of me again. The guy followed close behind, though, even close enough to grab my shirt a few times in an effort to stop me. When I got to the house, I knew I'd have no time to unlock the door, so I had to go straight for my car. I pulled the keys out of my pocket as I ran up to it, getting inside and locking it just before he got to the door. I turned it on and put it in reverse as the man slammed his fist into the window, shattering it with just a couple punches.
Damn.
He reached in and grabbed my arm as I backed up, swinging the front of the car.
No, man, my crazy ass. I would have grabbed your hand as tight as I can, and we taking the low drive. You're gonna be on the side of the car just dangling.
In his direction. It must have caught him by surprise because he didn't move fast enough to get out of the way. All I saw was his body slam onto the ground and not get up as I drove away. I called for help immediately while I drove, wanting the police to get there quickly to get some answers out of him. But when they got there, the man was gone. All that was left were some shoe prints leading back into the woods.
Into the woods.
When I was 14, my dad and I lived in a small studio apartment on Hollywood Beach in Florida.
I love hearing other horror. I don't know how to say it. Other YouTubers that do horror videos, horror stories. I like hearing their voice in other like collaborations. Cause I know I heard his voice before, but I can't put the name to the voice, but I heard his voice before.
We didn't have hardly any money, but we treated ourselves to take out every other Thursday from the same Chinese place a few blocks away. They were family run, so the same guy came to deliver the food pretty much
I never understood I love Chinese food. I like going to the fancy restaurants, or I like going to the carryouts, right? But it's like every time we order something, me and my wife, it's like no matter what we get one thing or like 5 different things. They be like, all right, 10 minutes. What? What you talking about 10 minutes? We ordered 10 different things and you talking about 10 minutes. It's like they got everything already cooked and they just heating it up. Oh no.
We found out later he was the adult son of the woman who owned the restaurant. It was my job every other Thursday to answer the door and pay for the food, while my dad found something on TV for us to watch while we ate. He was short, with gray hair and glasses. I was friendly, but not talkative. At 14, I was still in my shy stage. We never had a conversation.
Wait a minute. Was he just in the house like that? Wow, I went back way too far.
Every time. We found out later he was the adult son of the woman who owned the restaurant. It was my job every other Thursday to answer the door and pay for the food, while my dad found something on TV for us to watch while we ate. He was short, with gray hair and glasses. I was friendly, but not talkative.
That mother cluck is inside the house. Man.
At 14, I was still in my shy stage.
You're 14! And your dad talking about something. What's on TV? Meanwhile, he's inside the house or apartment, whatever. He's inside. Yeah, I see where it's going.
We never had a conversation other than the typical hello and have a nice day. During that time, I was left alone a lot. Both my dad and I felt like 14 was old enough to spend a few hours home alone in the afternoons after school.
Oh no.
I was also very close with a woman who lived next door and her goddaughter, so I would spend a lot of time over there when my dad wasn't home. I walked home from school as well, and it was one school day afternoon, an hour or so after I had gotten home, that the phone rang. This was around 2004, so having a house phone was still really common. Ours was set up at the side of the table in the main room of the studio apartment. I answered it, and for a second I thought there was going to be no one on the other end, because there was a long pause. Then a sort of stammering that I couldn't understand. Then, "This is Alan," which was barely understandable because of the heavy Asian accent. I say Asian because I'm not sure if it's okay to assume they were Chinese, just because they ran a Chinese restaurant. By now, you obviously know that Alan is the Chinese delivery guy, but at this point, 14-year-old me is confused. Who the hell is Alan? I say something along the lines of, what? And he clarifies, "Your delivery guy. Chinese delivery." Now I am even more confused. What does Alan the delivery guy want? He goes on, did you, order food? No, we did not, and I tell him so. He is quiet for another second or so, then, "Are you home alone?"
Oh my God.
My heart dropped into my stomach. Now I'm pretty sure I know what Alan the delivery guy wants, and yes...
Hopefully Alan opens up his eyes a little bit to see the cluck shit that he doing. Jesus.
I was home alone, but I wasn't about to let him know that. My first instinct was to tell him that my dad was home, but this wouldn't work because his work van wasn't outside, and I realized that Alan had been to our house enough over the last few years to know my dad's van, and if he drove by, he would know he wasn't home.
So Alan had negative cluck ass intentions since day one. Oh no.
My uncle is here, I say, and immediately I think it's a horrible attempt at a lie, and Alan is going to know that. "Why?" I challenge him. He is quiet again for a moment, then a statement, not a question. "You are home alone." I am stunned. I have no idea what...
I'm not though. I'm not. My uncle got dropped off here. What you talking about? You want to talk to him? Hello?
I say now as I'm trying to think of something. "Never mind," he says, and hangs up. I'm so weirded out and scared at this point that even though part of me thinks I actually scared him out of whatever he had...
Yeah. You know what you could do? You know what you could do? I don't know if this is like too much for you to handle, I don't know. It's a lot of very, very, very smart 14-year-olds. But you could, in that situation, call the police, explain the situation, and have police just out for like a few hours. Just post it up. Just in case. You could do that.
And another part of me says go lock all of the doors.
There you go.
So I do. Front and back. By the time I get to the front room, from locking the back door, I look out the front window and I see a car parked in the driveway. It's Alan, just sitting in his car. The windows are rolled up and lightly tinted, but I can see him behind the steering wheel, just staring at my door. 30 seconds later, the house phone starts ringing again. I don't answer it. Alan stays parked in the driveway for about 5 more minutes. I stood looking out the window the whole time, thinking to myself that the second he got out of the car, I was going to grab a knife from the kitchen.
Can we just get like a round of I cannot snap. But hopefully I can put a little effect in here so we can all snap.
Such a dramatic young woman.
Hey, let's go.
The house phone starts to ring one last time. I don't answer it. As soon as it stops ringing the second time, I pick it up and dial 911. I was terrified. Not only because of Alan, but I was afraid my dad was going to be angry with me for calling the police. It's a completely different story, but he and the law have not always been on the same side, and I was raised with a sort of subliminal aversion to the police, and the idea that anything I couldn't handle myself, my dad could handle for me. Alan drove away while I was on the phone with the 911 operator. I was in the middle of telling her he was calling the house and parking the driveway when he just put the car in reverse and sped down the street. The police took a statement from me when they got to my house, then sent me next door to hang out with a neighbor and her goddaughter. We sat on the front porch and I told her the
Why didn't you just do that in the first place? I did not know she was that close to you.
Story of what happened while the officers went down to the restaurant to talk to Alan and contact my dad. In the end, Alan was able to get off with a warning by telling the officers that there was a confusion and he thought that we had ordered food, which his mother confirmed. When asked why,
Not the mother in cahoots, or maybe she believes everything that Alan be telling her. I don't know.
he wanted to know if I was home alone, he said he was trying to get an adult on the phone. The police told them that they will have to make someone else make deliveries to customers in my area from now on, and to make sure that Alan keeps his distance. In all honesty, I think it was my dad's phone call to the restaurant later that really made Alan realize he had screwed up, and not the warning from the cops. He was fuming when I told him the story, as I imagine most fathers would be. He called the restaurant and spoke to the woman who owned the place first, then somehow convinced her to put Alan on the phone. What followed was one of the greatest conversations I have ever heard, even if it was only my dad's side I was hearing. Nothing makes you feel more loved than your dad in macho protection mode. My dad threw insults that I've never even heard of before, and I was in middle school, a kingdom of insult connoisseurs.
But hold on now, your dad probably could have just went into another room instead of you hearing all of this, the shit that he's saying at 14.
I knew it was a very serious situation, and I knew that my dad was really angry, but I was in the background stifling laughter into a pillow. At one point, my dad asked Alan what the hell he was thinking for driving over here, to which Alan responded something about being lonely, and my dad said, "If I ever catch you on the street again, Alan, if I even hear that you were near the street,
It's raps.
I will make sure that you are lonely for the rest of your life." We stopped eating from that restaurant after that.
It's raps, Alan. Club.
So I work at a pizza place, usually inside the restaurant, as my insurance does not cover claims when driving for business, but occasionally I will cover a delivery shift for one of the drivers because the money is good. Our delivery area includes a few new development, upper middle class cookie cutter neighborhoods, bad tips, an older 1940s era village, average tips, 2 apartment complexes, great tips, some trailer parks, great tips or no tips at all, and a bunch of rural areas, usually good tips. Not rural to the point of seeing hundreds of stars at night, but enough that you couldn't hear your neighbors yell. So about a week ago, I was covering a delivery shift. I came back to the shop feeling pretty good.
That was oddly specific. Enough that you can't hear your neighbors yell. You could have said anything else.
I'm averaging $5 a delivery so far, and they have all been pretty close. And I checked to see if I have any more deliveries to do. And I do. I have one to an address I have never seen before. We mostly have regulars get deliveries, so an address that doesn't seem the least bit familiar is odd. It's out on one of the more rural roads. I asked the kid who took the order what was up because there were special instructions on the ticket. He says, they said go around back because the front door is not operational. I'm like, okay, well that's not that uncommon. People often want you to go around to the back. Either they painted the door recently, or the house shifted and it's a bitch to open, or they are just hanging out in the back. So as I'm driving out to the house, I get an odd feeling. I don't really like the idea of going to the back of some house out in the sticks.
So listen to your motherfucking gut and leave the food at the front door. Better yet, because I said this before. I don't know why I'm holding my head. Drive up to the property, roll down the window, yeet! Yeet the pizza out the shits.
It would all be too easy for some thugs to order a pizza to an abandoned house. There are quite a few in the more rural areas. Then jump the delivery guy. I figure I'll scope the place out when I get there, and if it seems sketchy, just call them and make some bullshit up about how it's against company policy to go around the back of houses to prevent robberies. As I'm driving to the house, I realize it's towards the end of this road that gets less populated the further down you go. Great. I'm pretty near the address and driving slow. I see this house that is abandoned.
My ass.
And set back from the roads with no address and in a bunch of trees. I think, this house better not be it. So I drive past and check the next house's address, and lo and behold, that abandoned looking one was the right house. Shit. At this point, I'm not...
Shit my ass. I'm not stepping foot out that. My arm is barely coming out that window as I toss the pizza out.
Super worried though, because out in the boonies, the standards of upkeep on your house are pretty low. So a house in disrepair isn't necessarily unusual. So I double back to this house and I pull into the driveway. At this point, I'm getting bad vibes. It just doesn't feel right. So I park my car at the very end of the driveway with the rear of the car on the shoulder so anyone passing by can clearly see it. At this point, I call back to the shop and tell them I'm at this sketchy house, and if I don't call back in 4 or 5 minutes to call me, and if I don't answer, call the cops. While I'm on the phone, I take a chance to take a good look at the house. It looks extremely abandoned and not just in disrepair. The driveway is crumbling, bits of gravel, and there are weeds growing out of it. There is no mailbox, no trash cans, no car, no lawnmowers, no landscaping, no kids' toys. Absolutely nothing in the yard. The yard hasn't been mowed in what looks like years. The house is total crap, and the roof is all but falling apart. The siding is falling apart, and even the back deck, which comes around the side, is falling apart. The only part of this house that looks even a little bit decent is the allegedly non-functioning front door. The windows are all shut. It's like 95 degrees and humid, and this place does not have an AC. They all have the blinds or curtains shut. The few that aren't are actually boarded up. I don't even see any wires running to this house. It's not dark yet, but it's dusk, and there isn't a sign.
As much time as you're taking in describing this house, you could have dropped off the pizza, went back to the store, clocked out, went home, had a full course meal, watch about one season of The 100 on Netflix, and then dozed off, got up in the morning, brush your teeth, wash your face, ate a bowl of cereal.
Any lights on in the house. At this point, I'm starting to get a little bit nervous.
At this point,
I'm a 5'10" male, 180 pounds, but not in any great shape. But I did take karate for 10 years, so I'm not completely helpless.
Man, what? What?
but I do try to avoid any sort of confrontation I can, as I'm mostly a pacifist.
Karate?
I'm not too concerned about getting robbed. No skin off my teeth, it's not my
I
work.
feel like taking karate is like taking Spanish in high school. Like, for some odd reason, I took 4 years of Spanish and I know like the basics. I took 4 years of high school. I mean, of like 3 or 4 years of Spanish. And I know like, hola, ¿cómo estás? Muy bien. Y tú, buenas noches, buenas tardes, el baño. I know enough to get me out of trouble. I know numbers 1 through 10. Is once, is that 11? I don't know. You know, I know like a little bit, but not like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like it's the same thing with karate. Like, who the hell remembers karate?
I mean, I would rather not get robbed, but I'm mostly worried about getting jumped or killed. It's a fairly safe area, but recently there have been some rather unsavory people moving in from the city. A big spike in home invasions and robberies, but more worrying, a few stabbings and assaults.
You have been in that same spot probably 30 minutes, if that.
So it's either time to nut up or shut up. I'm not just going to go charging in there like...
What did you just say? You say nut up? Go back.
A big spike in home invasions and robberies, but more worrying, a few stabbings and assaults. So it's either time to nut up or
Nut up? Who you nutting up? Pause!
shut up. I'm not just going to go charging in there like a fool, so I get out my phone and call the number they gave when ordering. While I'm doing that, I'm also getting the pizza out and make sure to leave my door open. A running car half in the road at an abandoned house with the door open. Looks suspicious, right? I figure if shit goes down, it might look out of place enough to make someone stop. Not that there is really any traffic this far down the road. I'm starting to walk up to the house while the phone's ringing. It rings twice, and then an automated message comes on. It says something along the lines of this phone number is associated with an internet texting app. One of the ones that you download, and it lets you send free text from a different phone number over a data connection. I think it's called Haywire. We have had issues with people using numbers from those services for pranks in the past. This is a huge red flag. My heart is now pounding in my throat and my whole body is telling me to bail.
Huge
I
ass
don't want to get a
nostrils.
reputation for being a flaky bitch as a driver and lose any future delivery shifts, and that is why I have not bailed yet. So I'm just standing there holding the pizza, looking at this house, but not wanting to venture around to the back of it. I'm hoping that the resident will look out of the window and come out. But
You are spending an ungodly amount at this property. If y'all was him, what would y'all do the first immediate level you got here? When you got to this, if y'all was him, you got to this house, what you doing?
the road to get their food. So I am looking at the front windows, checking for some sign of life. I could see a blind go up the one window next to the front door, and a really creepy looking guy with a hat pulled low and big sunglasses on is looking out. Remember, he is in a completely dark house surrounded by trees. At dusk, there is no reason for him to be wearing sunglasses. I also see what appears to be a big guy standing behind him in the room. This could have been anything, though. When he sees me looking at him, he mouths something and he darts away, presumably towards the allegedly broken front door. At this point, I noped the hell out of there. I had stayed pretty close to my car, so it was only a few steps away. I jumped into the driver's seat and threw the pizza into my passenger seat. Something I would never do, since I'm really anal about keeping my car clean. I slam it into reverse before I get the clutch all the way in, so I grind my gears a little. Again, something I never do. Without looking, I simultaneously slam and lock my door and floor it backwards onto the main road. I didn't even check for cross traffic. Really stupid on my part. I start to drive away and look back at the house. The screen door on the outside of the front door is now open, but...
Man, I feel bad for the people that just started a job, like a delivery job. and like you just started in your first day, you already experienced some cluck shit. It's your first day, you're excited because you got a job. You've been looking for months for a job, and you just got it. Your first day, you gonna do some cluck shit, man.
The front door is still shut. The guy isn't out in the yard yelling, "Wait, come back," or anything. He's just gone. So I pull over a little ways up the road to call back to shop and tell them I'm all good and I'll elaborate when I get back. The people never called back to inquire about their food. People usually like to call if their pizza is 15 minutes late, and these people never got it, so it's pretty strange that they didn't call. Pretty much confirms to me that they were up to no good. After telling my coworkers about it, we concluded it was definitely a robbery at the very least. So we put the address and phone number on our no deliveries list and ate their pizza. I doubt I would have actually gotten murdered or anything. Robbed with maybe a gun or a knife pulled on me, or a little roughing up, yes, but it was still very unnerving that I easily could have gotten into some serious trouble by just doing my job. Especially if the idiots picked a slightly less abandoned house to set up at.
Right.
A few years ago, I was working at a pizza chain in my hometown as a driver. I was 27, but I made darn good money delivering. I had worked at a few other places, both local and chain, in the years before, and still work as a dasher on occasion, even after this happened. Now I choose to deliver in much safer areas for this reason. I got luckier than I could ever imagine. One night I was working and I had a double, 2 deliveries to take. Both were cash orders. I had $12 left in my bank, what drivers are given to use as change for cash orders, so you don't have a ton of cash on you at all times. The first order went on smoothly. The guy gave me $50 for a $35 order, so I was excited about the nice tip. I drove to the second delivery. It was at an apartment complex with multiple buildings. I had delivered there before. The sun was about to set, but it was still very light out. The chain I worked at had us drive company cars with a logo on it, all white sedans. This is important. I grab the order and go to the door to the apartment. A young guy came out, and a much bigger, older guy was outside smoking a cigarette. The big guy went inside as the smaller guy came out. He looked around nervously and asked how much he owed me. The way he was looking around just made me very nervous. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I told him the amount, and he said that wasn't what he was told on the phone. Something was very wrong. I felt someone else walk out behind me from the door. As the first young guy looked around down the parking lot, craning his neck as if he was looking for someone. I told him the amount again, and I broke down the order for him, trying to keep calm. Then the first guy held a gun to my right temple. Shortly after that, I felt a poke on my spine. 2 gunmen. I couldn't speak.
Damn.
Words wouldn't form, no matter how hard I tried. Give me your money and keys, now.
I wonder how they would react if the guy had Superman powers, or like at least, how you say, impenetrable skin. Did I say that right? Like you cannot break the skin, like on some Hancock type shit. Like you cannot break this skin no matter what, and it doesn't hurt. Like I wonder what would happen. I wonder how they would react if you shot him and the bullets just bounced off.
Guy growled, and I fumbled immediately for the keys. I gave him the keys, trying my best to remain calm. Another guy came up from my left. He had poofy hair and was around the same age as the first kid. The one behind me I hadn't seen yet. The big-haired kid grabbed the pizza bag and ran off and hid. The first kid searched the company car. Luckily, I had left my wallet in my personal car. I saw him grab my cell phone, though. That's when the panic really began to set in. I had pictures on that phone that I hadn't backed up of my then 5-year-old son.
That's why it's important to have, well, that's not the only reason, but it's one of the main reasons to have two phones. Your work phone and your personal phone.
Who absolutely is my world. Hey, please don't take that. I have pictures of my son who died on there. It's all I have of him, please. I lied. My son is very much alive. The kid behind me spoke softly. Trust me, just listen to him. You'll get it back undamaged. I don't want to be here either. I could tell he had been crying by how his voice sounded. A car began pulling in, and the three boys took off to the other end of the complex in full sprint. Before the one behind me ran, he dropped the gun in front of me. Standard issue 9mm, silver and black. Safety off. Looked completely real to me. He picked it back up and ran with the others. The car that pulled in and saw me, it was a woman and her kid. Panic set in as I realized I could easily come back and do way worse to me as the sky started to get dark. I collapsed. They had taken my company car keys, $72, the pizza, and my phone. The woman ran up to me and asked if I was alright. She took me into her apartment in the next building over and locked the door. I was shaking so hard I couldn't even hold her phone to talk to 911 as she set down her kid. Her boyfriend, I assume, helped me call. I spoke to the operator and told her everything. I'm colorblind, and these kids were obviously wearing all black and white clothes, thank God. I had a full description of two of them. The poor woman who helped me was going to be late for work, but she still stayed until I was off the phone and the cops had shown up. Man, she was harsh and blunt with the operator, but I will never forget this woman's utter kindness to me and her boyfriends. The cops showed up and contacted my store, and my manager brought out the spare keys for me to drive the car back to the store. After dealing with the cops, I drove back and I was greeted by crying and beyond worried coworkers. All of them were terrified that I was hurt. It meant a lot to me how much they cared, but I told them I was fine. I filed the proper paperwork, and the 72 was written off as a loss to the store. Thank God, because I had worked at the other stores that make you pay back the money out of pocket
Oh no.
to get robbed, to prevent drivers from stealing. I was told by the owner to take the rest of the night off and take care of myself. He gave me a hug. He was, to this day, one of the best bosses I've ever had.
Okay, get off me though.
What I didn't know was I was in for a very, very long night. I called my best friend before I left the store from the store phone and asked where he was. We usually meet up for drinks after work. He was around the corner at a bar, so I met up with him. His dad was a District 4 cop in my city at the time, the same district that this happened in. He told me his dad had given him a heads up and he had 2 shots waiting for me to calm my nerves. After the 2 shots, we began playing pool when his dad called his phone and asked if I was with him yet. He said yeah and handed me the phone. His dad asked if I could come to the station. I was honest though, and I told him I had 2 shots, so he sent out a squad car to get me since it wasn't that far away. So we get to the station. They had suspects in custody already. I was needed to ID them. 3 boys and a driver. They had been caught less than 20 minutes after the robbery.
God damn!
The be on the lookout had already gone out, and they matched the description. They had used the money to buy weed and gas and had taken off. They had at least 15 stolen cell phones on them. The order had been placed on a stolen phone even. My phone was in the mix in the box. The police told me to grab my phone only, and I did. They asked me to unlock it. It had fingerprint verification, so that was easy. 9 of the 10 tries to unlock it had already been used before my phone would have completely reset. It unlocked. I told the police every detail yet again, although my parental instincts kicked in. I told them the guy behind me quite obviously was bullied into this, and to show mercy, he was the one with the white shirt. The police went wide-eyed and told me that he was the one talking. The other 3 denied involvement. That's when I found out about the 4th guy, the driver. We found out that later he was completely unaware of the robbery and was just picking up his friends.
Oh no.
He was never charged. The boy who was behind me and the one who grabbed the pizza were 15 and 16 and got 6 months of house arrest. The only reason the one behind me got off so easy, despite having the gun to my back, was because I asked him to go easy on him, because he was a good kid who didn't want to be there. And he was the only one confessing. Makes sense, since he even said the other guy wouldn't have the phone for long. He was planning on going to the cops had they not been caught. But the other guy, the first kid who put the gun to my temple, it was his 18th birthday. He got the book thrown at him. In the courtroom, he made fun of me and was laughing at me. Seeing him made me panic. The judge scolded him for his behavior, and he just grinned and glared at me with a Joker-like grin. All I could see was pure evil. This kid will definitely commit more crimes. I have no doubt he will eventually end someone's life. You can see how cold he is just by looking in his eyes. He's an evil person. I grew up in a town full of murders and abusers.
Damn.
I had never seen this kind of evil in my life.
That sucks.
And I never want to again. I asked to have my name stricken from the records and asked to remain anonymous in case he ever got out. I'm so glad I did because today I got a letter from the state. It's being released in February. The court only had my old address, my parents' house, and my mom didn't think the letter was important. I missed the deadline to protest his release for probation. The plea deal was 8 years, and it's only been 4. Apparently he's getting out early due to overcrowding.
That's crazy.
Not good behavior, overcrowding, this coming February. And I'm ready if he finds me. My wife, my parents, and everyone I know knows his face and name. If he tries anything, we are all ready. But for his sake, let's not meet.
You ready? Come on, let's throw down there, motherfuckers.
This happened only a few months ago. I work at a small retail store in my hometown as an overnight employee. I do all the regular things, like stocking shelves and taking inventory, and sometimes unloading late arrival trucks. The job is very chill, being that I usually work alone or with one other person, so nobody is there to boss me around all day. On this night, I was alone until 4 a.m., and I had a lot to do. Over the course of an hour, I was in the aisles the whole time, not needing to go to the back room for anything. But at around 11:30, I thought I heard something from the back. I walked down to the end of the aisle and looked around, then went into the warehouse room, and right as I entered, there was a knock on the back door. That door was only used for truck drivers when delivering a load, but I was never notified about any deliveries this night. Being a large metal door though, there was no peephole or glass to look out of and see who it was.
Man.
I walked over to the delivery bay and opened the garage just a crack, and just as I'd assumed, there was no truck. I was almost hoping there would be though, because now I was really skeptical as to who was knocking on the back door.
Well, you skeptical as cluck. You skeptical as cluck. How you go from peeking underneath a small crack or whatever to fully opening the shits?
In the middle of the night. A few minutes went by and no more knocks or sounds came from the door. I even pressed my ear against it and tried to listen, but I was pretty sure whoever had been out there was gone now.
You sure?
Being curious and slightly dumb, I opened the door to make sure nobody was still outside. I peered out into the unlit driveway running behind the building. There were no cars, no people, and not even any sounds. It was just empty and quiet. Seeing this and thinking back to the loud knocking, I felt a shiver go through me and I closed the door. I walked back to the aisle I was in before and tried to get back to work without worrying too much. Through the next couple hours, I went in and out of the back room several times, but never heard anything else. It was 2 a.m. by this point, and I was finishing up stocking one of the middle aisles when a very quiet but recognizable sound came from the back. It was the metal door clicking shut. My face went white as I froze up. I didn't hear anything else, but I knew I had to check on it. I walked very quietly, still listening as I approached the back doors. At first glance, looking around the warehouse, I didn't see anything, so I made my way further in and toward the back door. It was closed, and being that it only opens from the inside, I was just confused. Trying to think of what could have happened, I turned and looked down the hall of lined up boxes when I saw a figure facing me. He stood at the end of the hallway, seeming to have just rounded the corner and not expecting to see me.
You got it.
But after a short moment of shock, the man started sprinting at me. He was large and intimidating, with a look of anger in his eyes as he came barreling down the hallway. I ran for the door and into the grocery aisles, trying to make it to the front of the store. The man's footsteps coming up behind me were horrifying, but by the time I got to the front, the footsteps had stopped. I pulled my keys out and unlocked the door, and as I shoved the door open, I looked to my side and saw the man standing at the end of the aisle, just watching me. Without hesitation, I ran out into the parking lot and into my car, calling 911. By the time the cops arrived, the man was long gone, with no traces of where he went. Through the security footage, we could see the man wedging something into the back door that somehow unlocked it, allowing him to get inside. Once he was in, he looked around as if trying to find something particular before he saw me and chased me to the front. Why he let me leave and why he even broke in is still unknown. I don't know what would have happened had the man caught up to me or decided to not let me leave.
Shut up.
But I'm just thankful it never had to come to that.
Man, Jesus Christ. I will never, ever do delivery. I will never, ever do overnight again. I will never, ever work somewhere, no matter how big or small the building is, by myself. You can't do it. You have to probably pay me like a bunch of money, right? If I was to like either work overnight by myself, work in a building, or work somewhere where the space is big or small, by myself, or doing deliveries. Because it's like, so much shit can go wrong in deliveries. So much can go wrong in working by yourself. So much can go wrong overnight. You got it. Keep it cool. Keep it classy. And I love you. Stay happy.